My name is Bill Spencer. Thank you so much for joining. I am a Senior Director on Microsoft Teams, and I'm pleased today to have two ISVs who have created great solutions in our GCC and GCC clouds for Teams customers. The first, Peter Barrett from Moveworks, will talk about their conversational AI-powered integration in Teams for lowering support costs. Take it away, Peter.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, everyone, for attending. So my name is Peter Barrett. I'm the Director of Federal here at Moveworks, and our mission for my team and myself is to deliver a trusted, secure, and scalable solution to the government to automate employee support. So I wanted to start by just giving a really quick background on the company. We're about 575 folks globally, of which nearly half are in the back of the office technical roles focused on conversational AI. With the world of ChatGPT blowing up, I'm sure you've heard. There are several different patented technologies that are powering our platform, which my colleague Ian Ron will showcase today through a demonstration. But tons of industry awards and recognitions. Moveworks has been focused on this space, not just since the ChatGPT boom, but as you can see, for nearly 7 years. We have over 25 PhDs on staff. And as of last week, with Microsoft investing in OpenAI, we're the second most well-funded conversational AI on the planet. So when you think about the power of Moveworks and the Microsoft partnership, we've rolled this out to over 225 enterprises globally. And we have past performances in the DIB space as well as the US government as well. And when you look at Moveworks, we're actually top 5 global application inside of Microsoft Teams. So we want to take the power of underlying technology ecosystems and make them accessible to everyday employees, whether they be program directors at DIBS or they actually be federal or civilian workers at government agencies themselves that are trying to get access to information, but are in the weeds with too many systems, too many options, and don't know where to go to get help. That's where Moveworks comes in and leverages our conversational AI to bridge the gap between people and systems inside of Microsoft Teams to give them help. And Microsoft's actually a customer through LinkedIn, GitHub, and soon Activision Blizzard as well. But what is Moveworks? So from a high level, Moveworks is a conversational AI platform that manifests as a 24/7 digital assistant directly inside Microsoft Teams. So we want to be able to understand who users are by tapping into your identity access network and connect them to relevant resources that are both trusted and secure and privileged access. And our system comes pre-trained on over 450 million conversations. So what that means for you is you don't have to spend time developing workflows, developing systems that are going to be able to answer questions. We do all that for you. We connect to that underlying technology ecosystem that you already invested in, and we bring the power of those systems directly inside of Teams to give direct access to employees to get help. So you can see a user can say hello, we know who they are, and they can pivot the conversation from this simple software provisioning request for an individual asking for a marketing project, piece of software, Trello, and we can kick that off, or they can say, where can I change my benefits? And our system is intuitive enough to understand the context of language at work and route them to the relevant source system. So unlike chatbots historically, and the pre-ChatGPT, if you will, folks would have to come in and manually script out how you would interact with a chatbot. So if you've ever been on your retail, shopping experience or banking, I experienced this with Verizon last week, where I came in and I tried to use the chatbot. I was trying to upgrade my internet access, but it was based on a predetermined dialogue flow. Someone trying to take a keyword here, like I need a new laptop, and then create that menu-driven experience that we've all experienced at one point, either in our professional or civilian lives. So for that experience with Verizon, I was trying to upgrade my internet. I came in, I said hello to the chatbot. It said, hello, looks like you already have internet. Would you like to upgrade your account? I said, yes. It said, great. Would you like TV or voice? And because someone didn't predict that as an existing customer, I'd like to upgrade my existing package, I got stuck in what's called a conversation flow loop. And then I picked up the phone, called the help desk, took about 45 minutes, and they told me I had the highest available internet in my area. And that's a common theme that you have with chatbots historically, because someone tried to predict how a user would ask for help. In this example, I need a new laptop. And you think about how many different ways folks at your organization can say, I need a new laptop. And then you factor in different languages, different permissions. How long have you been at the company? Did your boss approve this? And it becomes quite a process to try to understand the nuances of language, and where machines really struggle is with understanding context. So with Moveworks, we completely remove the dialogue flow building process, and our collective learning comes out of the box with the understanding of how to route relevant requests to your systems. And what we do is we connect to your various parts of the technology ecosystem through APIs. So we'll hook in to your ITSM layer to be able to record both any question that comes into the bot, as well as any provisioning or any resolutions that we serve to the user. So you always have full visibility into what the chatbot is doing, what it's serving, what value it's representing, and of course for auditing and trustworthy purchases. We want to deliver all these different parts of the ecosystem directly inside of Microsoft Teams to bring the power of tools like ServiceNow, to bring knowledge management from tools like Confluence, SharePoint, ServiceNow into a central system where your employees have one place to go when they need help. They don't need to understand what resources live in what application. If I want to submit time off for PTO, or I need to request a new mouse for my computer, they can simply go to their bot directly inside Microsoft Teams and ask the question in their preferred language, and Moveworks will translate that, understand it, and route it to the relevant resource and kick off the automation process. So we want to remove a lot of the political red tape that everyone faces in the workplace today and simply provide help at work. Now, you can build the world's greatest chatbot and give access to everybody, but we're creatures of habit, and users are still going to go to their preferred channel for support. So Moveworks will actually intercept tickets regardless of the channel they're coming in, reach back out to the users directly inside of Microsoft Teams. And if there is an automation process, in this example, Alex is requesting a license for DocuSign based on who Alex is and his privileged access to those systems, we've gone ahead and issued that piece of software for him. And then in the back end, what we're doing is we're recognizing this email as a software provisioning request and then closing it out accordingly in the system of record, the ITSM. So you have this magical experience as an employee where you get help from a bot that you might or might not have known even exists. And this really helps with driving adoption inside of both Microsoft Teams and the Moveworks chatbot, which will be branded and white labeled with an avatar of your choice. So those companies I mentioned before, LinkedIn, GitHub, Activision, they all have their own avatar, their own bot. So if you reached out to any of those folks that may or may not be in your network and you ask them about their experience with their IT support chatbot, when they say we use LlamaBot at LinkedIn, just know that that's Moveworks behind the scenes. But we do encourage all organizations, all agencies to be able to create their own custom avatar to really create that personalized touch. And this process here of intercepting these tickets and resolving them will really help with adoption of both those technologies. So really, our elevator pitch is to unlock the potential of all your resources. We want to bring the power of all of your knowledge articles, but also self-service forms, software provisioning stores, and also looking up information for people. As a new hire, one of the hardest things to do is learn the organization chart of your organization. So Moveworks can actually allow you to ask simple questions like who manages our professional services team, or who owns this program that we have a multi-billion-dollar contract with. And based on your existing information, Moveworks can serve that to the user. And you can also look up things like floor maps, which I use today at our HQ here in Mountain View. And then in the scenarios where Moveworks does not have a resolution path, where it does require an SME from your team to get involved, we're going to route that ticket. So we triage with over 96% accuracy, which is really important because when employees come into the interface with Moveworks and they ask for help, we either want to solve that problem or get out of the way as quickly as possible. And being able to look at who has solved this type of request previously and get it over into that individual's queue or that team's queue without it sitting and waiting sometimes 2, 3, even 4 days in an email inbox. That's really effective at providing a world-class experience, which helps employees do their work more effectively. In addition to routing, we can also send approvals directly through Microsoft Teams. We have a manufacturing customer who's rolled this out to over 145,000 end users, and they route over 10,000 approvals every month inside of their Microsoft Teams environment using Moveworks. They've completely shut off email approvals. The reason being, emails took on average 3.9 days for each approval before they implemented Microsoft Teams and Moveworks. And now with their bot, they've gotten the approval process down to 9 minutes globally. So they've actually turned it off completely. Every single approval for that company goes through Moveworks inside of Microsoft Teams. But it's also things like reminders when users request information or when an agent needs more information from the user. We can give them visibility into the lifecycle of that ticket allow them to add comments directly inside of Teams as opposed to going into another interface with their ITSM or the intranet to get an update on the status of their tickets and managing the life cycle of them. So historically, we focused on IT support, but about 2021, late 2021, our early adopters like Broadcom, Nutanix, Western Digital, they had so much success where their HR leaders came to their CIOs, Steve Philpott, Andy Nalapon, and Wendy Pfeiffer, to actually ask them, hey, everyone loves our IT support chatbot. I get the same questions for benefits, for payroll, for new hires in the onboarding process. How come you can't automate that? How come the bot can't serve up answers? So we investigated that, and we did. And for the past year plus, we've been able to automate not just IT, but HR, finance, facilities, legal, sales ops questions for these organizations. And over 50% of every question that are coming into those bots in those respective companies are being resolved end to end by their Moveworks bot without the need for an agent to be involved whatsoever. And that's a trend that we expect to continue moving forward. But when you think about how Moveworks works, yes, we connect to your systems as they are today. But as we all know, technology is constantly innovating, and it's constantly going to be the organizations that bring in the best of these innovations into their portfolio of technology. They're taking advantage of that. So Moveworks will integrate not just in Teams, but as well as the entire Microsoft ecosystem as new innovations come out. We want to connect into things like Viva to bring that directly to the users inside of Teams, serve up relevant learning management solutions and processes that are going to help the users with what information they should be staying ahead of in a timely manner. It's also grabbing all the information from SharePoint. So Moveworks is actually the first company to successfully deploy a SaaS chatbot, leveraging SharePoint information, as well as the first SaaS chatbot directly deployed inside of a GCCH Teams environment. And we did that with a Northern Virginia defense and aerospace provider, and we deployed it to over 100,000 users, and they've been live with us for over a year. So those are things that we're working on as an organization, and we're going to continue to take advantage of the best of breed of technologies that are out there. But instead of talking about it further, I'll actually kick it over to my colleague, Ian, and we'll dive into a live demo. So Ian, if you're ready, I will pass you the ball.
So a couple things I want to cover before jumping into a presentation is Moveworks' approach to leveraging large language models. If you've been watching the news or you've been having conversations with your colleagues, you've probably heard of ChatGPT and looked into some of the technology that powers software like that. Now, what's interesting about this type of technology is that companies that have invested heavily in machine learning and AI expertise like Moveworks have been exploring and implementing these types of models for a very long time. In particular, in our solution, we've been using these since 2020. And depending on the task that we're trying to solve, whether it be natural language generation, whether it be cross-lingual understanding, text-to-text generation, we try to leverage the best technology at supporting that particular function. Now, our company's approach to leveraging these is, once it's released, look where it could be applied within the product, and then often quickly bring it to market. So for instance, GPT-3, which is the power behind the ChatGPT engine, is already being implemented in our solution. For instance, with language generation, when we convert English language to other languages, also for generating knowledge on the fly for questions that have not been written by your teams. But other platforms that we support, such as Moveworks for Voice, leverage models like Whisper, which is extremely important when we leverage our voice technology. The main thing I want to say here is, as new models come out, Moveworks implements it within their solution to provide the type of experience I'm about to show you right now. Now, unlike the ChatGPT world, Moveworks' intention is to solve your particular issue at your company. And the intention is also to help you automate tasks that may take days and bring it down to only moments. So I'll give an example. Somebody comes into Teams and they're talking to their bot and they're looking for something. I might say, I just joined a team and I need to get Visio, but I don't have a license. And in certain situations, it's best to just do the work for this user. In this case, there's a defined process that's already been built in one of our backend platforms to help this person provision Visio. So the user interacts with the bot, they'll say, yeah, and then Moveworks is contextually aware to know that we are within a workflow. And we're going to go ahead and look at the business process behind that. If you can see below, you can see that Moveworks, while following the request, reached out to my manager. and it's sent an approval over to Peter, he's going to get pinged on his device of choice, whether mobile or whether on the desktop. And once he approves it, it's going to update on the ticket that we've generated. And not only do that, but actually do the provisioning activity, reaching out into Azure AD to add me to a group to actually provision this software. Now, at many companies, a process like this could take 3 days because the user has to find the right place to go. The user has to fill out the right form. If they don't fill out the right information, there might be back and forth dialogue with the service desk. The service desk routes it to a team that eventually goes into Azure AD, adds them to a group, provisions the license. We're trying to bring this down to seconds. And we're looking at the most common employee use cases. So I'll give another example that's pretty common for people who are trying to automate tasks, adding people to groups. But users don't say, hey, add me to this group. They just go and ask something along the lines of, how do I add Varun S to the sales DL? Now, it's important that your technology is aware of your enterprise systems. In this case, Varun S is Varun Singh, who is part of my team. And there's several sales distribution lists, which we have to take a look at. And the user is provided information that allows them to complete the work. So in this case, all I have to say is it's the inside one that I'm interested in, which will go create the ticket, look for any approvals, and then follow through the business process. Again, something that often has many back and forths between the team who manages email distribution lists and the user has been brought down to only a few seconds because Moveworks is able to understand the user and then fill in the gaps with this information that knows across the system. Now, many companies invest tons in building enterprise-grade knowledge. But the challenge is that with enterprise-grade knowledge often comes difficulties with user experience. People are used to leveraging things like enterprise search. They're used to leveraging things like search in their own world when they're looking to solve problems. What we're trying to do is take advantage and unlock the power of that enterprise resources that they're building. Now, what we've done is we've created a best-in-class semantic search engine. For instance, if somebody were to say, how do I connect with Global Protect for the first time? Rather than providing several places to look for content related to VPN, we're actually able to find the single best answer to solve this person's problem. Also notice that I didn't use any terminology between my question and the answer that was presented to me. And this is because Moveworks can find semantic similarities between the content that you build and the questions that your users ask. We're also able to convert much lengthier content into simple bite-sized answers. So for instance, if I connected and I say, I got on the VPN, but it's running really slow, rather than providing the full troubleshooting guide for all the things that can go wrong with the VPN, we've actually extracted and summarized the steps to solve this person's problem, potentially bringing something that's many pages down to only a few steps. So really powering the ability to provide much stronger, simpler experiences by leveraging the things that you're already invested in. Now, Moveworks is an IT support tool, but it's also an employee support tool. So one of the challenges, for instance, in providing HR support is that we need to be aware of who the user is. So if I were to say that my wife is having a baby, what is our leave policy? The answer that you provide me versus one of my colleagues out in the UK or Canada would be very different. And that's why it's important that whoever is interacting with Moveworks gets a personalized experience. So it means that if I'm a US-based employee, we get US-based content. If I'm a full-time employee, I get full-time employee-based content. We're always targeting these personalized information to the users so that they're not sifting through and looking through a bunch of content. And similarly, rather than relying on the user to figure out, well, if I need to get in touch with somebody, who's the best team to get involved with, Moveworks can make that assumption for them. This person's asking an HR question, therefore we'll pass them to the HR team. And if they want to talk live or file a ticket in the respective system, we can do so. We're really trying to simplify what that support process looks like so that your employees don't have to think about it. Now, here's the interesting part. You've invested in human capital management systems, you've invested in ticketing systems, you've invested in identity systems, you've invested in a whole ecosystem of technologies that integrates into all these things. The user should not need to know that they need to go to ServiceNow to file their ticket. They need to go to Workday to look at their PTO balance, and they need to go to ADP to look at their pay slip. They should be able to do all of that within a single system. Let me just give a couple more examples. Let's say I would like to take a vacation. Reasonable request. I'm sure we all feel that way. Sometimes you might have multiple relevant answers that address a person's inquiry. Again, this is a solution that they don't necessarily know all the paths they can go. And then Moveworks will do its best to bring the best answer to the top. So if you see here, I have view my time off balance. I also have how do I request time off. So it's brought in multiple relevant sources. Now, my time off balance is actually the one that's on top. And because it's an automated process, a transactional process that can actually allow me to apply for time off directly from the bot, it ranked it higher than, for instance, the content that we built to support on our time off policy. I'll just take a look at that to showcase it, but we're really smart at being able to balance the fact that there could be many right answers, but we'll help you determine what's the best right answer. Now, one of the things that bots often have challenges doing is context. Let me give you an example. If I were to say, what is the status of my headset? I'm going to go fetch the right answer for this user. In this case, it's going to look at my open tickets, and it's going to see if it can find one that applies. In this case, it's a specific ticket that you see here. Now, it's providing me options. Of course, I can click it to add a comment. I can close the issue. What happens when I say, how do I get, let's see here, a new laptop? Well, potentially, I am looking to append this as a comment to my previous ticket, but most likely, I'm looking to context switch. So we're showing the power of two things. One, Moveworks is contextually aware of where the user is in their conversation and can understand whether the person's trying to shift. Two, we're able to rank two potential paths and guide the user through likely the path that they want to take. In this case, the user is actually looking to proceed down a new path, and they're going to go and ask for a loaner laptop. And not only will we guide them to the right process, we're actually going to bring the loaner laptop form that was built on their ServiceNow portal or their IT service management portal and bring that directly within Teams. So a solution that's contextually aware, that can rank the best paths for the user so they don't have to think about it. And then when you do drive the user to the answer, make it a Teams native experience so that they don't need to know where this particular workflow lives. And the great thing is that Moveworks comes pre-trained on all of this. So you never have to input sample intents in the solution, provide sample utterances to train a model so it can interpret what the question is. We do that for you. And not only do we do that, but we will also bring the power of those models to you so that you can look at the type of questions that your employees have. So for instance, if I want to look at a particular employee type, let's say I want to see my engineering employees and the issues that they had back in November, and I want to take a look at the type of software that they're troubleshooting, and I want to also look at the specific questions that they have related to this. We can use our AI to generate this for you so that you can get a sense of how to improve the experiences that Moveworks leverages to help users in Teams. So that brings our demonstration to the end. Moveworks is an AI-based technology that helps users. And the great thing is that it makes support easy for everyone.
Thank you very much, Ian. Moveworks truly is AI-powered simplicity. It gives employees the best answer, no matter how they phrase the question. So really
Yeah, well
brilliant.
said.
And the first is, what languages do you support? The second one is, tell us about your licensing model. And if you can give us a sense for pricing, I guess would be the third.
Yeah, this is Peter. I'm happy to answer those. So from a language perspective, we support natively in the product over 100 different languages. So
Wow.
if you have one that we don't support, I would love to hear it, but every major language is supported. From a licensing perspective, we have a couple different options. So we can build a license model based on the value that's being delivered via a consumption model, and we can also do a fixed firm price model for up to 3 years based on a license capacity, typically tied to the number of core knowledge workers at an organization. But we don't like to limit how many folks get to interact with it. If you're part of the agency that's licensing us, we want everyone to tap into the power of the automation and leverage it to get help at work. So we come up with creative solutions around licensing there.
Thank you. So just to emphasize, support for GCC, or I should say FedRAMP Moderate, native support for FedRAMP High, large deployments in both. Anything you want to add there in terms of plans around DoD?
Yeah, I'll say we are going through. So we spent, you won't find too many startups that have invested as heavily as we have in the federal practice. So we went through our gap remediation with Coalfire all of last year. We're working with Shellman currently right now on our FedRAMP authorization. We plan to be added to the marketplace in the coming months. We already serve a government agency as a customer, as well as several of the DIBs in the community. So well positioned to come in and start driving impact to your organization. Happy to partner to do so.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Peter and Ian. I really enjoyed that. Every time I see Moveworks, this is actually my second deep dive in the last, in as many weeks, actually. I'm always impressed. Thank you so much for the collaboration with Microsoft and your support of Microsoft Teams and our mutual customers. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to ask John to come up from AvePoint. MyHub is a great solution for operationalizing the governance of teams. Almost every government agency I talk to or DIBS customer will say, well, the challenge with teams is just how do we manage it? And a great solution to consider is MyHub from AvePoint. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Bill. So pleasure to be here today. Let's do a real quick overview on AvePoint. So AvePoint is a global organization with AvePoint Public Sector being our public sector entity devoted to the United States government, local, state, federal, defense, and higher education. And you can see some of our stats up here. We are FedRAMP authorized. I'll talk a little bit about these offerings here on the next slide. We're going to be talking to you today about the MyHub application, and we'll talk about what it does. But first, let's talk a little bit about how you can get it and what customer bases can leverage MyHub. So Microsoft 365 GCC customers can simply download the MyHub Teams app from the Teams App Store or through AppSource. MyHub customers that are using the Microsoft 365 GCC High version can get a side-loadable package from AvePoint. So contact their AvePoint rep, and we've got a special package there that they can use. MyHub is authorized, FedRAMP authorized at the moderate level. I believe we've got 4 ATOs up there now. And we can serve both GCC and GCC high customers of Microsoft with that FedRAMP moderate offering. When it comes to DoD, we do not currently have a deployment in DoD. But we are working towards that actually right now with a couple of prospective customers. So pretty broad support. I'm going to show you a bunch of features today. There's no known feature gaps or limitations depending upon which Microsoft cloud you're using, be it GCC or GCC High. So everything I showed today should work fine no matter which Microsoft cloud you're using. Okay, so talking a little bit about what MyHub is intended to do. MyHub is an end user facing application. And as such, we wanted to try to accomplish a couple of things. The first is to try to simplify the process of being collaborative in a system like Microsoft 365. And so being able to curate and organize and prioritize all the various collaboration spaces that you happen to be a part of. We think about Microsoft 365. I'm probably part of a bunch of teams. I'm probably part of a bunch of groups. I'm probably part of a bunch of communities. Maybe there are SharePoint sites that are relevant to me. And it can be difficult for users to sort of remember all those things and make sense of them. There might be a single business work stream, for example, that incorporates one or more teams, sites, communities, and there's no real way to connect the dots if you're a user today. And that's one of the things that MyHub is intending to solve. We're also looking to give folks better visibility across the landscape, maybe find things that they didn't know existed. So this idea of broadening the visibility of users about exactly what collaboration spaces exist out there, and being able to leverage them as opposed to creating more and more duplicates. This is something we see quite a bit, is people don't know there's a team for a particular purpose, so they create one. Someone else has already created a team for a similar purpose. Now people don't know where they were collaborating because there's 3 different things for the same purpose. And then finally, as Bill said, one of the very powerful things that can be done with MyHub is it can act as the front end for really a broad governance and management strategy for Microsoft 365. So things like provisioning, recertification, lifecycle management, change management. MyHub can end up being that place where you reach out to those end users and allow them to interact with your broader strategy there. So let's actually go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is just frame up some of the productivity features. This is, I'm sure, not unique to me, but I'm part of a lot of just teams alone, part of a lot of teams. And my left rail in Teams is pretty disgusting when I look at it in terms of how many different places I am collaborating on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. What we're trying to do with MyHub is give users a bit of a curated view, and that could either be curated for them or curated by them. One of the things you'll see as I enter into the demonstration is the ability for users to quickly access the relevant areas of these collaboration spaces. So if this is a Yammer community, for example, how do I get right to the conversations? How do I quickly get to the site that backs that Yammer community, etc. Another thing that we'll allow is we'll allow users to create their own sort of taxonomy. And this is very important because this is similar to just using hashtags or something like that. And basically what it lets you do is it lets you create some order out of these collaborative workspaces. So maybe I've got a group of teams that have to do with a particular purpose, and I want to kind of group them together somehow and easily get back to them. We have this concept of tags that you can apply to your workspaces. And then what you can do is you can organize workspaces and curate them into something called a hub. So the hubs allow you to create filtered views of your workspaces for various reasons. And a workspace can be part of one or more hubs, and your workspaces can include teams, can include Yammer communities, can include SharePoint sites, Office 365 groups, really all different kinds of things. And I'll show you how you curate that pretty easily. In addition, what you're going to be able to do is get one-click access to a lot of the information that you're going to need to know about those collaborative objects. So let's actually jump quickly into a demonstration, and I'll show you a little bit about those collaborative features that we've got. So again, here I am in Teams right now, and typically we'll see folks that have a very broad set of workspaces. One of the ways we deal with having too many workspaces is we have ones that are hidden that we're still part of because we don't want to leave, but this area can become quite a mess. So if I'm an end user here, what I may want to do is have a little bit more logical view of my world, and that's what I'm going to see here with MyHub. So with MyHub, I'm seeing here, first thing I land on is this hub interface where I see my hub selector up here. And so I'm looking now at my workspaces, which is a hub that's a built-in hub, essentially. And what it does is it'll just surface all the workspaces that I'm a member or an owner of. And I keep using the term workspaces because you'll see that there's different kinds of workspaces here. Here's a team. Here's a Microsoft 365 group. Here's a Yammer community. And with one click, I could go directly to that object. So for example, if I wanted to get to this Yammer community, it's just one click to take me there. If I wanted to dig into some of the components of that workspace, I can very easily be jumping to maybe the channels of particular teams, or if it's a group, like such as this one, I'll be able to easily get to my conversations, which would take me to the group mailbox, maybe the notebook that backs that group. So this is an easy way to just sort of collate and bring together these kinds of things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start curating and building a hub. By the way, this is, this card view is one way that you can view things. If you prefer, you can see a list view instead. Different preferences for different folks. And what I'm going to start to do is a couple things. So we mentioned the idea of tags before. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to add a tag to this Contoso finance team. So I have some mission critical things. And I'm just going to start tagging some workspaces. And so let's see, I'm gonna, my leadership team here is also gonna be mission critical. And you notice once I create a tag, I can start applying it to places. And then maybe this is also a mission critical workspace here, this team. So once again, I'll go ahead and tag that one. And so what has that done? I've done a couple things. So what I can do now, if I wanted to, is I could actually come up here and I could create a hub. This one I'm going to call mission critical stuff. And what I'm going to do is maybe set that to be my default hub. And I'm going to say, go ahead and find workspaces based on a tag. And I'm going to pick a tag here called mission critical. And I'm just going to go ahead and save. And now all of a sudden, what I've got is a mission critical hub. I can create as many of these hubs as I want. And you see here a few things. I've got some saved hubs here. I've got hubs for things that are favorited by me. So if I go back to my workspaces, maybe what I want to do is come in here and favorite a few of these things. This will do two things. This will make sure that these workspaces now show up in my list of favorites, but it will also mean that in the source application, in this case Teams, these teams will be favorited. So that's a pretty cool set of functions. And this is just the sort of productivity stuff. So what you can do is you can actually have MyHub sort of up and running. I personally have MyHub up and running during the day, and I have it sort of popped out of the Teams interface so that I can quickly get to any of the teams and work streams that I have. I've got separate hubs set up for product related things, for customer related things, for internal purposes. And it's easy for me to get to anywhere that makes sense. Now, this is cool, but as Bill said, where it gets really cool is where we can use this same application to be the linking point to really push out my management and governance strategy to my organization. And when MyHub is combined with another AvePoint solution called AvePoint Cloud Governance, what that does is it really expands MyHub to now be the front end for all this governance related functionality. And we're going to walk into an environment next that is set up with that sort of connection made. And you'll see that we're going to be able to do things like view and manage data ownership of all these objects. So I'm not just talking about who's in the functional owners group. What we're talking about here is actual user level, who owns this thing. We're also going to be able to get down to many types of workspace level classifications. If we remember the tags we saw in our earlier demonstration, they were what this particular user wanted to associate with that particular workspace. When we get to this workspace level classification, it's more of a centralized or top-down classification. So we'll be able to map a team, a group, a site, anything really back to a particular business unit, division, agency. This is a big one. In public sector, we have customers that have 60, 70 different divisions of one type or another within a single Microsoft 365 tenant. Very, very common in our government customers. And so not only could you build hubs for that purpose, but also now the organization can create this metadata to segment the larger tenant into smaller subdivisions. This gives you great visibility into what we call a collaboration asset inventory, as well as automated processes for periodic attestation, recertification, change management, and lifecycle management of these workspaces themselves. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop back in, and you're going to see this is a MyHub instance. It looks and kind of smells just like the last one we saw, except you'll notice that we've got a lot more tabs that are going across the top of the screen. And these tabs are what light up when we connect MyHub to a customer who is also a cloud governance customer, AvePoint Cloud Governance customer. And so there's a bunch of things that are on here. One of the things I can now do is allow users to access a service catalog. So maybe what I want to do is offer an ability to create new workspaces. And maybe what I can do is actually interview them first. And set up in a very easy kind of point and click way a number of options that will take them right to the right pre-formatted request, right? And in the back end, you can see that things like the sensitivity is going to be already set. We will be able to see that things like policy-related components are all set and mandated. So good way to guide my users right to their provisioning requests, change management requests. So here's a workspace retirement service that they could enter into, which will do a managed deprovisioning of workspaces. We've even extended this now with our provisioning, and we support the provisioning, managed provisioning of teams, sites, groups, Yammer communities, guest users, and coming in March, directory level objects as well. So security groups and distribution lists and things like that are all possible through this. So that's provisioning. But another thing we can do is enable some of those kind of cooler processes and procedures here. So we talked about the fact that when we go ahead and provision something, one of the things we can do is associate metadata with it or tags. I'm going to take you now to an admin's view. And when I go to this admin's view, you're going to say this workspace report. And if I go into any particular workspace, I'll just happen to go into this Q2 outings one. You'll see that we've got a lot of basic information, but we've also got all of this additional metadata that we're tracking against these objects, right? In this case, it's a team, but we support this across all object types. So there's this touch and go between what an end user is asking for and what they're telling us, and then what we're able to manage over time. One of the things that we've got the ability to do is understand attestations. In this software, we call them renewals. So I'm going to show you the process for a renewal that an end user would do through MyHub. And so if I'm going to go to my to-do list here, you can see that I've got a few, more than a few. This would be setting off lots of bells and whistles behind the scenes. But here is that Q2 outings team, and here's the renewal task associated with it. So again, a completely different use for MyHub, but because it's where the user's acting anyway, it's pretty easy for us to grab the user and pull them into this process. So what this is it's an annual attestation, and I'm going to be guided through the process here in MyHub. And I'm getting this task probably because I'm a data owner. So we let you message to the user whatever you want to message to them. If you want to guide them to training or enablement on what this process is or how they should be doing it, you can do that. I also am able to see in here details about this workspace before I even start. So a couple things I could do. I could say I don't need this workspace anymore. Right? Don't bother me. I don't need it. And what that'll allow me to do is specify a desire to archive or delete the workspace. If I chose one of these options, that deprovisioning would follow whatever automated managed deprovisioning process an admin set up for that workspace type in the AvePoint Cloud Governance configuration. So there's some things I could do if I don't really want to step through the renewal, but if I do want to step through the renewal, what we can do is now enter into the process. And you can see now we've actually got private channel renewals that are underway. So this renewal process is moving through, and the first thing I can do is decide whether or not the data ownership that's currently set up for this workspace is correct. I'm going to be asked to vouch for the membership to make any appropriate changes that might need to be made. I'm also going to see things like the last time that person was active. We know that a team is very complex. It has SharePoint permissions. It has team memberships that could give me access. It's got sharing links. So rather than a user needing to know about all those things, we just guide them through the process here. Here's an example of the associated SharePoint permissions, and everything that has specific permissions, I'm able to see and view and make changes. And when I'm happy with everything, the last thing is, what are the sharing links that are active inside this workspace that I'm renewing? And then I can make any changes if I want. Here are some org-wide links. So if I wanted to, I could take that and remove the link, or I could change who this particular document is shared with via a link. And then finally, we need to keep that metadata up to date. So here's an example of how we can keep that metadata current by making it part of an annual attestation process. So again, this is just scratching the surface of what you can do, but really what we're trying to do in MyHub is create a home for personal productivity, which is the same place that users can reach out and interact back and forth with your with all the collaboration spaces that they're part of in Microsoft 365. So I'm going to pause there and see if we have any questions. Obviously, we could go for hours on this, but
thank you, John. It's such a powerful application, and I know from customers who have adopted MyHub, it saves a lot of time, allows for repeatable, consistent processes, because sometimes if you leave this up to chance, people get upset because the
Yeah.
policies aren't consistently applied. So thank you for that integration with Teams, and the fact that it's available in GCC Moderate, GCC High, and DoD is fantastic. We have a question. What's the time to deploy and adopt MyHub for a typical federal customer?
It depends on which parts of this functionality they're going to be leveraging. So for just the hubs functionality, it's pretty quick, right? The only delays that you'd see would be in getting through whatever security validation and vetting would need to be done. The connection process, because it's all SaaS-based, is very quick to the tenant. But once we clear all the red tape and the logistics of getting the app approved and actually greenlit by the organization, MyHub, just the hub's personal functionality is very, very straightforward. There's really no back-end configuration you need to do. If you're going to be leveraging the governance and management stuff, that does take a little bit of coordination in terms of understanding the configurations that you'll need. What are your policies? What are the provisioning workflows that you want to enable? So generally speaking, if a customer has a good sense already of those governance practices that they want to automate through MyHub and cloud governance, it's a few weeks of getting those configurations up and running. If we need to work with them to help flesh out what those practices are, obviously it can take a little bit longer than that.
Thank you, John. My colleague Rocky asks,
Yeah.
what are the differences between the MyHub commercial and the MyHub for, say, GCC?
Yeah, great question. So functionally, there's no difference really. We have a version of our AvePoint Online Services platform, which is specific for our US government customers. So the only reason we have two versions of the app is we need to make sure that the app logic, when we have a customer that's using both cloud governance and MyHub, is pointing back to the right version of AvePoint. It's almost like you can think of it like Microsoft has commercial and GCC offerings, which are nearly identical but segmented and separate. We have a similar division in our own platform.
Right. Okay. What languages does MyHub support?
Yeah, so MyHub is today in 8 languages. So we support English. Let's see if I can name them offhand. English, French, Spanish, German, Japanese, Chinese, and 2 more that I can't remember offhand.
Okay, thank you. And can you give us a sense for licensing model and pricing?
Yeah,
I'm talking about the government version, just to be clear.
Yeah. The licensing model is pretty simple. It's a per user. So it's a per user model. For the MyHub functionality, standalone, not connected to cloud governance, it uses a consuming user model. So if you want to use it for a department, or if you have a team that wants to use it, they can use it and pay just for their own. For the governance connected version, when you step up to that level of functionality, that's a per user in the Microsoft 365 tenant. So it really depends on how much of that functionality that you're going to use. When it comes to cost, it varies depending upon whether you're using the standalone version or the governance integrated version. So again, it depends on which levels of functionality you want. One of the things we just introduced was support for those governance related workflows for Power Platform objects as well. And so that's an example where maybe that's something that you want, and there's a per user license step up for that. So really is a case of per user is the basic model. How much per user is going to depend on how much functionality you want to use.
Thank you, John. Well, the functionality has gotten that much deeper and more impressive. So I really appreciate the integration with Microsoft Teams. Making Teams a more manageable environment is goodness for so many of our customers. So thank you, John, and everyone at AvePoint for collaboration with Microsoft. And again, I want to thank Peter and Ian from Moveworks, and thank all of you for joining us today. I'll make this recording available. I really appreciate our opportunity to get together and take a good look at these products for our government customers and DIBS customers. Thank you all very much.